Hello and welcome to Rob from the Internet Talks About Beer, a show where we discuss different styles of beer, beer history, beer flavor profiles. We give shout outs to breweries we think make exceptional beer, and we talk about whatever else comes to mind during the course of the conversation. I'm Rob from the Internet. Let's talk about beer. All right, joining me today is Andrew Walsh with Lake of Bays Brewing. Andrew, if you would, tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got into the beer biz, and what you do when you're not brewing beer or talking to people about beer.
Thanks, Rob. So Andrew Walsh, head brewer for Lake Based Brewing Company. I've been with the company for almost 10 years now. Started out as a keg washer, scrubbing floors, scrubbing tanks, doing the nitty gritty, doing what you have to do in a brewery. It's been a fun ride. A lot of just making my own work to seem important at some days. It kind of felt like of jumping in on Saturdays when I was young and had no responsibilities for anything, and making all sorts of mediocre recipes, finding my way across the beer world and seeing what I could do. And it's been a fun ride. I never really expected beer to take me kind of on this adventure. It seemed like a lot of fun, and I didn't really know what I was getting into, but it fits me really, really well. So it's grown from a company that was 6 fermenters and a small Baysville facility to 2 restaurants. A medium to top producer of craft beer within Ontario. It's just it's crazy how far we've come. We were sort of reminiscing not that long ago about all the silly things that me and two of the original guys that are still brewing today used to just kind of pull, and there wasn't as much work as there is now, and we used to have a little bit more time to ourselves, and now we're just on the go and on the go and on the go. So yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, I've been to the restaurant, and I guess it's like your little experimental place in Huntsville.
yeah,
It's got the little setup there. It was quite enjoyable. Had good food, great beer. It, wa- it was
appreciate
it
it.
was it was nice. It was a nice day. We were up there for the Band on the Run
Oh yeah,
half marathon. It was now it's been like I think 3 years ago, thanks to COVID. But
yeah.
but
We
yeah,
try to
so
just forget about those last 2 years in the brewing industry. I mean, it wasn't horrible. I mean, it was sort of a weird realization that we were I guess a necessity to the province. That always felt weird. I remember that coming down and being like, well, we're closing, right? And I was like, no, we're probably getting busier. And it was interesting, but it kept me sane. I luckily had an opportunity to take paternity leave for 8 weeks, just starting in November for my first son, and but it really gave me a taste of that, like, oh, I'm at home for 8 weeks. Like I love being in the brewery. I love that crappy smell of whatever people sometimes think. Oh, I can't. How do you work in that? And it's like, oh, this is what I breathe in all the time. This is good to me. I don't know. I always kind of get the bakery vibes off of it, but some people can't
yeah.
stand it. But it's
No, I mean, I love the smell too. I'm a home brewer. I've been brewing for the last 15 or so years. I've got a new system coming, supposed to be delivered mid-May,
very nice.
as long as China doesn't get shut down completely now.
Yeah.
Um, so I've got a one barrel skid mount system coming that's going to be
Oh,
delivered to.
nice.
Yeah, it's
So
moving up.
that's legitimately better than anything that I was brewing on for the first like 6.5 years of Lake of Bays. Like it was like, and that's not a shot. That was just Darren's basically scraping pennies together, and I think he bought the system kind of as an intro to, like, oh, I'm gonna start a brewery, so I do need something a little bit more. But the way that home brewing has come along in maybe the last 5-10 years is incredible. Like, I had a friend who was actually Asa Prevost. He's head brewer for Brothers Brewing down in Guelph. Great spot if you haven't checked that out. But he was making systems, I'm pretty sure, at a time, and he was doing some really cool stuff. And I was like, who's doing this? Like, who's buying this kind of stuff? It's fully automated almost. It's got, it's one barrel or half barrel systems, but it's great. Like, I was brewing on, no joke, turkey burners and cut up kegs, and like we had a pump that sort of works, and you were just sort of hoping that it didn't fail halfway through, and you're pumping into other cut up kegs that we were using as like kind of demijohns, and it was it was again a lot of fun. But I'm looking at the systems that people are kind of growing up with in their garage now. And it's like, fuck, you got the Rolls Royce. Like we never
Yeah.
had that. We didn't have anything like that.
Yeah.
But
No, and yeah, I know. Like, I know the system I'm getting is going to be the envy of a lot of people because it's. I mean, it's a commercial system.
yeah,
Um, when I moved to Canada almost 4.5 years ago, I had plans on opening a brewery, and after my wife and I discussed it, we decided that we just have a really kick-ass home brewery and still be able to take vacations and things.
yeah. They, it's ever the joke. If you want to be a brewer, don't open your own brewery. You're never gonna touch the system ever again. I
Yeah,
mean, again, Darren was homebrewing in his closet, started that dream, and had a business degree. But I have a feeling that, he kind of pokes around the brewery every once in a while, and he knows a lot of stuff for not probably touching the system in 8 years, but it's incredible. He just kind of knows it all, and you can tell there's an itch there, but he's got way too much to do on the business side because it just swallows you, right? I mean, open two
yeah.
restaurants and keep a full brewery running and distribute all across the province and into the rest of the country. It's like, yeah, you're probably not mashing in a pilsner ever again. Like,
Yeah, yeah. The system I'm getting is it's not a fully automated, it's a semi-automated, but it does have it will have a touch panel with all the controls on it, and
nice.
it'll have recipe storage, which is nice because I tend to do I
Oh,
have
cool.
I have like 5 core recipes that I make all the time, and it's going to be
Yeah,
nice to just be able to walk up, press a button, say I'm making this today, and the system will start doing its thing. You know,
spitting stuff out. Yeah,
yeah,
no, that's
yeah,
cool.
it'll be nice. But yeah, no, well, enough about me. Let's get back to you. So I have two Lake of Bays beers with me here. I've
Cool.
got Low Tide, and then I've got your non-alcoholic. So
Cool.
figure we'd talk about these. Whichever one
Yeah.
you'd like to start with, I will crack and drink.
Well, let's go for low tide because it has the alcohol content, and I've had a long day. I don't know about yourself, but I'll take the 2.5.
Yes.
So, jumping into this industry when I did, it was all heavy West Coast. West Coast IPAs and big ABVs, and again, it's just this industry keeps you on your toes. I jumped in, and again, brewing on the turkey burner system on Saturdays and Sundays, I just sort of forced a role of like, I'm going to be product development. And everyone kind of looked at me like, sure. I mean, nobody else is doing it, so that's fine. But it seems like a lot of fun because product development is kind of just homebrewing, right? It's just messing around with stuff where you're like, man, I wish I could have that. Oh, somebody else has the budget to pay for hops that I can't
Right.
find anywhere. Cool. Yeah, that's a good deal, but it's tricky. You have to keep up with trends, and you're always trying to model yourself after what is trendy, but you're also trying to become the trendsetter. And you know, we've had product launches before where we were early, and we had products that basically just had an okay outing and died off, and we thought nothing of it. And then in a 18-month span, the LCBO starts picking up on it, and it was like, oh shit, like we were there, we were right there. So low tide is actually a great example of that, where we launched it. We had a little bit of over complicated jargon. I think we were trying to simplify it for the customer of like buzzwords, and what happened, there was just too much of it, and so now we just have it as a 90-calorie IPA, and it sort of just says everything that it is. It's a light beer. It's 2.5%. And again, my 24-year-old self would have been like 2.5%. What are we doing with 2.5%? Where are my Belgians? Where are my triples? Where are my, where are my double IPAs that are just full of Centennial and Amarillo and whatever else was popular back in 2014? And I had some different goals back then, but it's amazing the clientele that we have that are coming up to our restaurants that are drinking our beer a lot more are are more so in line with me and yourself, where we have some obligations.
Yeah.
and, I, and I don't have the time to be slamming back a mystery pack, 8 to 10, 7 percenters. Like a 1-year-old has kept me on my toes enough over 15 months that it's really nice. I can come home with 2.5% beer, and I get the full experience.
Right.
That's my takeaway from it, at least. Not to say that I can't get into some doubles and some other things every once in a while, but it's just one of those things where it's nice where I can sit outside. It was beautiful here today and 15 degrees.
Same here.
And I can go out on my deck and have like 3 of these and be like, okay. And now I still got dinner, nap time, bedtime, and all the other parenting things that come along with it. And I'm in control. I'm doing pretty good. And now I get to sit here and have a conversation with you. And you don't have that worry of like, oh God, like I'm a mess.
Yeah.
it's it's sort of fun. Now I don't want to take away from again some of the nicer high ABVs. We just did some cool stuff in our barrel house, which I'll talk about a little bit. But our barrel house program is another niche section of Lake Bays where we actually have 3,000-liter fooders, and we're doing way more specialty stuff. We just put out an Oud Bruin that is probably my favorite beer that I've ever
I'm gonna
made.
have to grab
It
that.
was Yeah, and it's funny, we've had a little bit of trouble with shipping, um, because it's all in 750 tall glass, and so we've been doing great with our online store, but it's all been cans. Cans are super easy to move. They don't really break. They're light. They're easy to pack up. And then we were like, what about these big glass bottles with wax all over them, and they're worth way more, and they're like, oh, I don't know, maybe so we had to talk about it. So we're trying to work on that to get that distributed, but at our retail locations we're having it, and slowly we're trickling the fact that like, oh, we're more than just the cottage brewery that people sometimes think of. We're doing some stuff that actually is pushing a little bit of those super crafty edges. And it's important that we kind of always say we have 16 taps in the restaurant and we don't expect you to like all of them, but I bet I can find you one or two that you can really
Yeah.
appreciate. And that's sort of the philosophy that I've always come in with, of like, I'm not going to try to convince you that you need to like a beer. If you don't like it, that's fine. I just need you to have an open and honest take on it, try it, and 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 just think about what you do or don't like. And it's amazing. You give somebody that like 10-second speech, and you see them look at the glass and be like, okay, I'm going to take this seriously. They take a sip and they go, okay, I don't like it, but this is why I don't like it, and it makes it so much
Yeah.
easier.
Well,
Um, it's
and
crazy.
that's the beauty of going to the brewery and say getting a flight. So if you're not sure,
Mhm.
you're making like a 4 ounce commitment, not a 16 ounce commitment. So
Yeah,
it's a lot easier to go. Yeah, no, I'm not going to drink that because I don't like it because it's this big as opposed to this big.
yeah, yeah. Well, we've even gone a bit of a step further with our restaurants so we have the sampling bar. So we encourage all of our guests that if they want to get up from their table, go around to the sample bar in Huntsville or in Bracebridge, more so a Huntsville thing at this point. We're dealing with the Bracebridge space because of COVID. We've never actually had it fully open,
Gotcha.
um, but we actually suggest, like, please get up, go to the sample area, and taste, a few before you even order the flight. And we don't eat like we're not in the business of charging for beer that you aren't going to be a fan of. Why do we want to put even a 4 ounce glass in front of you and say like, oh, you didn't like it? That's too bad. Like, go up to the tasting bar, you get like a half-ounce sample, and you can make a pretty snap judgment. And then people still end up ordering flights of like, ooh, I think I really liked this, and I'll still just do a mixture of it because wow, I can get all these
Yep.
different beers. So
Yeah.
it's I really like that, because when we opened the pub, I wasn't sure how that was going to work, and we did. Darren was really like, no, let's get beer into people's hands. That's the
Yep.
goal, right? Like, why are we going to be stuffy about this and try to make $2 extra because they didn't want this beer, or we're going to charge for a half-ounce sample? Like, no, just let them have it, let them try it, and let's
Well,
see if
yeah.
they
I
like
mean,
it. So
ultimately, if someone likes something, they're gonna buy more of it. So you're gonna end up
exactly.
making money in the long run.
Hmm. Well, it's great instant feedback too. Again, with the product development thing, it was a natural progression that when we started opening the pubs, it was like, okay, quit brewing on this busted ass 30-liter system, and let's get you to brew on like a real but just smaller version of the system. And so I spend a lot of time at our restaurants. It's a big thing that launched me into the head brewer role, because it was, you get left alone, and you gotta, you gotta deal with an entire day. But there's a real customer side to it, where you can see people peeking in, and if you want to be a grumpy guy and just not deal with the public, you can do that. But to me, it's like, geez, this is such a great opportunity, not even just for Lake of Bays, but for the industry, to be like, look, here's what we do, and this is a real thing, and we're putting effort into it. And it's not always about just being a factory that pumps stuff out. It's about that connection, to me at
Yeah, I
least.
mean,
So I've had a lot of fun
if
with the
you can
restaurants.
connect with your customers, you're going to have a lot better relationship with them, and you're going to know what they like and what they're going to buy based on past relations with them. And it's going to help you guys to figure out, okay, well, what's the next thing we think people are going to want, because you're talking to these people, and you're not just holding them at arm's length. you know
Yeah.
I love going to breweries and touring breweries. I was talking with a guest I just had on earlier in the week about this, and it's not to see the brewing systems anymore, because I've seen so many brewing systems that they're all pretty much
Stainless steel.
it's all the same thing, just different sizes and in different locations. Um,
Ooh, you guys have a
yeah,
whirlpool
ooh,
too. Nice, nice.
yeah,
3 vessel
yeah,
system. Okay.
right, exactly. But
Cold liquor tank.
I love just talking to the people who give the tours, because it's typically one of the brewers who's giving you the tour, and you get to talk to them
Mhm.
and you ask them questions, and that's kind of what drove me to start doing this show, is because there's so many people that are afraid to ask questions, and there's so many people that are afraid to try new beers, that I figure if I can help anybody make a decision, hell, well, you might like this. Oh, you like drinking
Yep.
Bud Light. Well, you might like this beer because it's a craft beer, but it's very similar in profile. And
Mhm.
you get that kind of feedback when you talk to your customers, and when people take tours, and when you're not the grumpy Gus who doesn't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it. I think it's we see a lot of customers come in, and it's an educational thing where they're afraid of seeming dumb. They're afraid that they don't know enough about this very tight knit community. And craft beer can be tight knit in a good way, but sometimes it can kind of shut out from people too, right? We want to keep it our little secret, but it's so great when you get somebody who's like, I didn't know that I liked this. I mean, my wife is a prime example. We met at Lake of Bays. She was working there. I was working there. We had no idea who each other were. I moved up from the GTA, and here's this little girl in sales that's just a pretty pretty strong woman and knows what she wants. And you didn't mess with Emma in 2013, you still don't mess with Emma in 2022. um, but I remember we started dating, and she's like, I don't really like beer. And I was like, well, that's kind of gonna be a problem. Like I don't need you to know as much as me or care as much as me, but like there's probably going to be beer around, and it would be nice that we have that kind of common thing. So I, I did the same thing that a lot of people do, where it's like, well, okay, so we'll start you off on the lightest, because if you don't like beer, you need light. And so we try a light lager, no, and then we try something a little like a North American lager, no, I don't like that. So we were running through the entire profile, and I was like, well, there's only one beer left, but like I don't think you're gonna like it, but I mean, we're here, we might as well try it. And it was 10 Point, which was our English style IPA. It wasn't full West Coast, but it had Amarillo, it had Cascade, it was fairly malt forward, kind of like that medium copper sort of color. 50 50 maybe 60 IBUs. And I was like, you're not gonna like this. And she started drinking. She's like, this is my favorite beer. Why didn't you give me this first? And it's like, what? Like, and it just threw me, right? Like, it's like, no, you don't start out liking IPAs. I didn't start out liking IPAs. So like, you would start out drinking like I did with Molson Cold Shots and James Ready 5.5s, and that's the tradition of becoming a beer drinker. And then, but it's a flavor profile of all of a sudden you're like, oh. you just actually are thinking about why you don't or do like this. It's incredible. You kind of have to get out of that space of light. You start light and you go dark, or you start light and you go heavy. It's all dependent on what people's flavor profiles are, and you can't change those. So you kind of have to figure out where they want to start, and then kind of branch out from there. I still can't really get Emma to do too many like stouts or porters, and it's not in her wheelhouse. But then it makes sense. That's not in your wheelhouse. Hoppy and bitter is really good for her. Sweet and malty and like that chocolatey roast, not so much. So I still always give her trials of things, but it's funny when you start kind of looking outside of it and being like, okay, no, there isn't one way to look at this puzzle. It's
Yep.
many
Yeah,
different versions.
I came up drinking lots of really bad beer. And that includes that.
You look, are you
What's
an
that?
ex drinker? Are you an
No.
ex
Uh,
drinker?
so I
No.
have an uncle who was a brewer for Coors, so there was always
Oh
Coors.
yeah.
And then we always had all the other stuff. There was always Miller, and there was always when MGD came out, that was the big
Right.
thing. And then
Oh yeah.
what was it called?
Okay.
Ice House was a competitor. I think it was made by Budweiser. Um,
I think that one escapes me. I don't know about that. I might
oh,
have to track
I
the
don't even
case
know if
down.
I don't even
I bet
know
they
if
make
it's
tons of it.
even made anymore. So I started off with all those beers, and then I tried an ESB when I was 15, and I discovered I
Hmm.
really like the malt
Hmm.
and the sweet and the bready. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
nowadays I'm the stout and porter and ESB guy, and give me an old school English IPA, like traditional English IPA, because it's got that heavy
Yep.
malt forward profile with just that bitter end
Yep.
and stuff on it. And that's for me, that's my main go-tos. I mean, that's not to say I won't drink anything if
Cool.
you give it to me, because I'm going to try everything.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think you can like every beer. I mean, I'm in this industry and I we make all sorts, and that it's sort of it's one of those things where you have to remind yourself like I'm not making beer for me. I'm
Yep.
making beer to sell it. So just because I don't like this style doesn't mean that it's not going to sell. And you know, a big one for me is amber lagers. Our old head brewer Dan loved them. Like, and it was pale malt, special W, like in that realm. Those were the malts, and he made killer amber lagers, but he made so many of them. I was like, I just can't stand this style anymore. But but then I probably have staff in the restaurants that are like, could you quit making New England and hazies? And it's like, I don't even know if I really want to make those all the time anymore too. But we do have money that has to come in here, and that's what the LCBO demands. I mean, it's a funny game where you
Yep.
have to make beer for customers, and you kind of have to, yeah, you have to play the game and do well enough at that so that you can be in a company that has the freedom to say, okay, we have extra space, we have extra budget, we have extra kind of reach to be able to put out some weird I mean, if Lake of Bays was back where it was in 2013, we wouldn't be making oud bruins, like a lacto kettle sour with Brett primary fermentation that aged in foeder for 100 days, and I think it was a total of a 8.5 month aging process. Who's
Me.
buying that? like that? Yes, and me. But like, we're two guys on this podcast, and like, I hope the rest of you podcast people, kind of soak that in, but you know, try to go at that with a core and then try to get that into a brewing schedule over a week. I mean, that beer took 8.5 months. It took 4 days to brew because the kettle sour we were waiting on pH for 3.5 days. And again, my wife, such a wonderful human being to accept that, like, I love what I do. We were passing through Bracebridge and it was sitting in the barrel house in the kettle, and I go in and I come back out to the car and she's got our son, and I said, it it's at pH. She's like, what? And I was like, it's at pH. She's like, I don't understand what you're saying. Like, tell me. I was like, I got to brew. She's like, it's Sunday at 4 o'clock. I was like, I know it has to go. Like this is when it goes. I thought it would be tomorrow morning, which would have been perfect for a Monday morning shift, but it's Sunday at 4, and I got to get this beer out. So okay, well we're gonna
See ya.
go. See ya. Like okay, and I'm wandering around, and this is like within the first year of the barrel house being open, and you're like all these restaurant staff are like, the hell is he doing? Like we're in full kitchen mode. We're in full. I
That's
was like,
right.
beer doesn't stop. Sorry, I'll stay on my side of the wall. Like don't hate me, but this is gonna be the coolest beer we put out in a long time. So yeah, it's it's, it's fun. But again, going back, it's we've been given some real luxuries because we've just been
Yep.
able to kind of crank out the hits, and then that allows for us to get to some of the specialty stuff that you hear a lot about it from other breweries, but mainly your consumers. That it's like, why aren't you doing this and this and this and this? And it's like we can try, but we can't put out 100 different one-offs because it's really hard. Like the LCBO starts looking at you like, what are you doing? Like we make the LCBO's goal
Right.
money. They got to make some money, so your product has to sell. And if you're not selling, there's a 800th craft brewery opening in Ontario probably
It just opened right
tomorrow.
now.
So it's open right now. Somebody has I bet it's 50-50 chance somebody's throwing a launch party today on the Thursday
It
before
sure
Easter. It
does.
just seems like the right time to do it.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about um how you guys decided you wanted to make a 90 calorie IPA. What was the thinking behind that?
So well, I honestly think it started getting into kind of the group of people that we had when we were talking about beers. We kept coming up with this like I'm not gonna name breweries specifically, but people were putting out 9 and 10 percenters, and we would kind of talk, and we'd go back to work and be like, oh yeah, I was in the LCBO. Did you see this? And it's like, yeah. Did you buy it? I just don't have time for a 10% beer. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts too. Like somebody's obviously buying them. But it started kind of just as a everybody that was talking about it on like a base was like, I just can't see myself doing that right now. It's 38 degrees outside. Like I want to be in the water and I want to be refreshed, and I can't find that with these big beefy triple dry hop, triple quadruple IPAs. And so we're like, have we ever really done anything lighter? And I had made one brew at Huntsville. It was we called it Anime after my wife's grandmother. We actually found wild hops
Cool.
on her family farm. Um, Anna had passed away just the summer before, and I thought it'd be a nice little tribute to just be like we're using hops from her land, and but it felt like how do I incorporate her into a beer? And she was this lovely little woman who apparently really didn't drink at all, and her family doesn't really drink at all. So I was like, well, it's got to be light. Like it has to be light. And so we put out this beer with fresh, like wet hop, fresh picked that day. Went to my wife's family farm, drove it all the way back, put it like dry hop or wet hop the kettle, and I came out and everyone's like, "The hell are you doing? This is a 2.5% beer." And I was like, "Yeah, but it's kind of tasty, isn't it?" And they're like, "It is, but like I don't know if we can sell this." And it blew out. Like it was incredible, and we couldn't tell if it was the story, if it was the 2.5, it was just the flavor profile of it. But there was something there where people were like, "Oh, that's cool. I can't get that anywhere else." And the only thing that ever really crossed my mind as like a macro example of it, I think, was Crack Canoe. And all I knew of Crack Canoe was that when Crack Canoe first launched, I was 18, and my goals were not 3% or 3.5% lockers. Far, oh, that? No, thank you. I will be somewhere else playing beer pong or being a fool out in the park or whatever the hell I was doing back in my stupid youth as a youth drinker. I'm glad you said 15. It makes me feel better. I was in the same range. Like sometimes that number comes out and people are like, really? I'm like, well, I don't know. It happened. I don't know. But yeah, so that beer blew out, and we thought, well, we have to kind of look at this. So we wanted that was more of like it was like a mild ale with fresh hops because there was only so many hops on the farm that we could find. But we thought, well, let's take a style that people are used to having big ABVs in and kind of just drag that back and see what the reception is. I mean, we kind of didn't know. We
Hmm.
kind of thought like it's either going to go really well or people are going to be like, nope, who the hell would buy that? And so we put it out, and it did have a mixed review, and that's going back to that we kind of overcomplicated the language of it. We called it a super sessionable low IBU IPA or something. Like it was like blah, just it's just word soup. And so I think it scared a lot of people off. I think in the beer industry, when you work in it, IBU is such a common term, but it's amazing when we go to tables, we have IBUs just on the side of we have the beer, the style, the alcohol, and then we have IBUs. Um, because it's craft and it adds that little extra flair. But the amount of people that always are like, I don't know what that is. What is that? And it's like, oh, okay, don't be scared of that, and let's explain it. And so, anyways, again, blathering on, we kind of went, okay, well, hold on, let's just make this, just keep it simple. And we actually saw some other things coming out in the market that were like, okay, like I think the
Yeah.
low alc trend is coming up. Um, and it's been, I believe it's our best seller on our online store. And I feel like I don't have the data, but I feel like I heard that there you could see sort of a trend line of the original COVID drinking scale of like where some of our beers were going. And it was a nice, even sort of everything was going. And then like you got into about 6 months and it was like low tide. People have been drinking at home far too much. Low tide is a great option where they can still drink at home, but they're not doing the whole
Right.
hangover every day, doing nothing with their life thing. And we went, wait a minute, this makes so much sense. Like there is that market. You just have to be able to implement it and introduce it to people. But I mean, even if you're looking at, I think Molson has some low alcohol that they're pumping. Like I don't know any of their numbers, but if Molson's pumping billboard money into stuff and commercial money, and they're on all the sports networks, it's like somebody's done a good amount of research there, and that's telling us that we don't have a $300,000 budget to look into this. But we'll just probably base like, yeah, that seems like that's probably working over. They kind of know, a lot of people shit on macro, and I don't have time for it personally. I think they know what they're doing, and they have a lot of money, and they realize like food
Right.
bruins aren't their target market. So why are they making Coors Light kettle sours? Like it's just a different game, and you don't have to like the beer. There's nothing wrong with it. They make exceptionally consistent beer, which is something that I think the craft industry could really learn from. Of like, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we were
Yeah.
all just a smidge more consistent? Um, because I hate that. I hate buying a beer and being like, man, that was really good, and then going back and being like, what happened? Like, what is this? I don't know what this is. It's one of our biggest goals. It's been you become head brewer, and basically it's like owning a brewery again. You don't get to brew all that much, but it's been a fun ride of, okay, well, now I actually have a little bit of say, and let's implement some real change here. Let's tighten up these procedures. We're getting bigger. The only
Right.
way we get better now is really by honing stuff in. We've done all sorts of recipes. It's about keeping up with trends, but then consistency and efficiency is really our goals at this point. Um, because we're not in that startup stage of trying to wow people. We're a well-known brand, and that's where you can kind of define yourself of
Yep.
being stuck here forever or making that big leap. They always talk about hectoliters. You got to make. I think it's the old rule that I always knew was 15,000 hex, and if you're going to make 15,000, you might as well make 25. So it's really hard to make that jump,
Right.
because your equipment has to almost double. But once you get to that point, your break evens on production value are just there. And the only way you're ever going to do that is by having solid enough
Yeah.
products that people like don't have bad experiences with. You have to do good work. You can't just do pretty good work. You have to do good work to get up to a level where you're
Yeah,
selling
at some point
cases and
the
cases and
brewers
cases
need
and
to
cases.
stop being artists as much and start being scientists more. Because
Yes,
that's the key. I mean, that's macro
yes,
breweries. They have
yeah.
brewmasters, but those brewmasters are they're chemical engineers and scientists. That's what they are.
They're, and that's a big thing for me. I've been a little bit of a stickler. I think I get made fun of by some of our staff a little bit for it, but I always take head brewer. When I got the position, I'm head brewer, and I don't take brewmaster. That's not to take away from people that call themselves brewmasters, but to me, that's someone with a PhD in micro
Right,
or physical chemistry or something along those lines. And it's kind of like being called a doctor. And it's like, well, yeah, you're at the top of the position, but like you didn't really do all that work. Like somebody worked their ass off to get that. And so I hate taking that away. I think I'm pretty knowledgeable, and I think I'm pretty in the up with everything that I need to be up on. But there's a certain level of like, oh, you're a scientist that works in a bubble, and you probably don't really touch the beer other than for like getting lab
right.
reports from other
Yeah.
people who get
But
lab
that's what the
reports from
macros
other
do, and
people.
that's
So
why they're so
yeah,
consistent because they've gone away from the
100%.
artistry, so to speak, and gone more towards the chemistry and the consistent results they get. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. Look how much they sell.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Right. Some of their toys.
Honestly, I just want some of their equipment. That's all I want. I mean, oh my goodness. We've done I think I've done a lot of brewery tours. It happens in this industry. You get to see some places. I remember one of the first big ones that I ever went to see that was outside
Hmm.
of Canada was Great Lakes in Cleveland. And I didn't know much about them. I always remember being like, "There's a Great Lakes here." Like what? And it's like, "Oh, there's Great Lakes in the Great Lakes." It makes sense.
Right. It's not that
It's
big of
not
a
that hard to
stretch.
figure out that somebody wanted to name a brewery Great Lakes. They're both, no, it's not. I mean, but they're both fairly large breweries. But Great Lakes States, it's big, and we walked in there, and I remember seeing the brewer on shift, and he's just sitting in a chair in a room like 8 times the size of my house, and it only has the top of the kettle and the top of the mash, and
Yep.
he's just sitting on a computer in a lovely tile room. And I
Yeah.
went, "What? Like, what is this?" They're like, "Oh yeah, that's the tops of the vessels. We'll show you the bottoms." And then you go like down a flight of stairs, and it's just this like hall of just stainless everywhere, and but like. And so I was really jealous of all of that. But then I did get a good kick that no matter how expensive your brewery is, I was looking at their floors and there was little dips. Even with tile floors, there was dips and pockets of water on the floor. And I went, your drains don't work too. Yes, no brewery drains work. I don't know why. I don't. There has like we have to band together and just pay. Like somebody has to be specialized in drains for breweries because we're on 3 breweries now, and the Barrel House is finally getting really good. But like, just drains. Like I've never been in a brewery that's like, oh yeah, pockets over there. Oh yeah, it's sagged over there. Like, oh, I hate water on the floor. It's such a nerdy little brewer thing to be upset about. But water, I just want it in the drains, and then I want the drains to take it to the actual drain and it go away. That would be great. It would solve so many problems in the brewery. But every brewery I've ever been to, it's like, oh yeah, no, that's our
Yep.
Saggy
Yeah.
spot over there. Like,
I
oh yeah,
mean,
it doesn't drain there.
that's a fact of life in the brewing in the brewing world. There will be water places. Yeah.
Yeah. There's water. There's always water. Yeah. Yeah. I worked shut down at a nickel smelter one summer, and I had my boots. Um and garbage work, like bad work. And I was doing actually really easy work. I was whole watch because they basically said like, does anybody have first aid and CPR? We forgot to kind of train people on that. So does anybody have that beforehand? I put my hand up, and they're like, "Hole watch." And I was like, "Is that good or bad?" I don't know if that's good or bad. Like, you're a hole watch, put your hand up. Shit. But then I got to watch, other young, stupid men who needed a good paycheck as a 20-year-old go into horrible places. But the point of the story is that I wore these boots that were like heavy grade, and I was like, man, these are indestructible. I just worked at a nickel smelter, for Christ's sakes. Like, these will be 3 months of brewing shredded, like gone, like leather does not. And you wonder why. Oh, why do you all have rubber boots? Like, they can't be as comfy, and it's like they're not. But leather will last 2 months, and then I have wet feet for the rest of
Right.
the year before I buy another set of boots around Christmas and Boxing Day. So yeah, it's wet
Yep.
all the time. It's always wet.
Yeah. Well,
No matter
I
what
have
you
to
do,
say that
it's
this
wet.
this low tide, while pale ales are typically not my forte, it is really nice. And it would be a fantastic summer beer, sitting by the pool, sitting
Okay.
on the dock, whatever. Because
Yeah,
you're right, you could drink 3, 6, 12, whatever. And at 2.5%,
yeah,
you're not gonna get
yeah,
shit faced like right away. You can still enjoy things, and you can still have your faculties about you.
yeah,
um, which makes a great segue to the second beer.
yeah.
The second beer, you want to keep your faculties.
This,
This is the one
if you
that you
want to keep
want.
all your
Yeah.
faculties, you
So
can drink
yeah,
100 of
it's what.
these. We're gonna, I gotta talk to marketing. We're gonna get that put on the back of the can. I think. I think that's better romance copy than what we have
You
right
want to
now.
keep your
So we'll work
faculties.
on that.
This is the shit to drink, my friend. It's funny. I've actually done, I think, have I done three? I think I've done 3 episodes specifically on non-alcoholic beers, because it's amazing how far they've come in the last, say,
Oh,
5 or
really?
so years. I mean, non-alcoholic beers used to be absolute trash.
Yeah,
I mean, you had your Miller Sharps and
yeah,
your O'Douls,
yeah.
and they were all terrible. You know, we used to call
O'Doul's.
O'Drouls because it was terrible. It was so bad. And
Oh,
I
yeah,
did a show with the guys from Harmon's Brewing, and they're doing all non-alcoholic stuff, and their stuff is really good. And I did a show with a guy who's a fan of non-alcoholic beer, and I did it with Athletic Brewing, um, and they make good non-alcoholic stuff. I
oh yeah.
mean,
So
it's good stuff.
I actually haven't had to try or had the pleasure of trying Athletic. When we were making Near Zero, I actually reached out to them because I was like, Darren was like, we're gonna do non-alcoholic, and I was like, what? He said, yeah, we're gonna do non-alcoholic. Do you think we can do it? And I was like, I don't know. Let's take a look at this. So you're looking around, and I'm so used to being able to scour the internet. I mean, the craft
Hmm.
brewing in so many ways is built on a community of homebrewers. Um, they're running some of these tests that you just don't have the ability to put up in full scale. And so you can read, like I'm reading blogs from 2003, and it's like, ooh, that's a nice little piece of, put that in a little binder and throw that over there. And it's like, oh yeah, no, that's super useful. So I was like, this shouldn't be hard. Somebody's got to be making NA, and there was nothing. Like barren. The internet had nothing. That makes no sense. Like, so I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Like, I don't know the first thing. Can I ferment? Like, do I ferment it? Do I boil it? Is it some sort of machinery? Do we have like a dealcoholizer? So
Yep.
we're looking through all these things. So a dealc is like $300,000. Again, not the size to be putting out on a whim that we may or may not make. Like 300 grand, like that's a new centrifuge. I'll take a second centrifuge over that. But so I reached out to Athletic, and they were wonderful. They were the nicest uh, email reply that I got. They're like, so good to hear from you. We can't tell you anything. And I was like, what? yeah, no, we have a lot of investors that have been like really like, they've been pumping us up, and we're so sorry, but no, we're gonna keep this a secret. And I was like, shit, like I really needed that, so I didn't know where to start. But I guess they were great. Athletic was great, and I actually need to buy some product off of them because I see a lot of targeted ads. Probably because I've done enough research on non-alcoholic beers that the overseer is tracking that I love non-alcoholics. Um, but yeah, they're doing some cool stuff from what I see, and they were super great about it, but just couldn't tell me any secrets. So then I started, doing research on yeast and doing research on different brewing techniques. And there's a few ways to do it. And this beer took me 7 trials, probably 9 months. And some just came out like,
Drain pour.
oh, that's we can't sell that. Like that's not very good. Like yeah, like 500 liters of like, I don't think so. Like I don't think that's going anywhere. Um, it's crazy, but it's again it. So we started seeing low tide, and it's a great transition the two beers that we have today. But we started seeing like, okay, so there's a group of people that are like, we still want the alcohol flavor, but then there's a whole group of people that are trying to,
Yep.
just have a substitute without the alcohol for whatever reason, whether it's health, whether it's New Year's resolutions, whether it's whatever. And it's been great. It's been really really good. Where we thought this would be a little side project, maybe. Probably Darren, being as smart as he is, was thinking that no, he has an idea of what the hell's going on, and head brewer who's drinking only regular beers has no idea. But it just was like, yeah, we might do one of these, and then it's okay, let's do another batch, and now we're doing a fifth batch, and you start thinking of, well, Athletic has a bunch of, like, not specifically Athletic, but they're a good example. Athletic has a bunch of SKUs, and Partake has a couple different ones. So we wondered, a big thing about NAs
Yeah.
is that like O'Doul's had a red, and I think that was like the craziest sort of non-alc that you could get. It was like, whoa, not a blonde lager, a red non-alcoholic, like, oh, really setting the market trend here. So we're we kind of went with, again, not to beat a dead horse, but we went with a pale ale where it was, let's give the craft drinker something to kind of to say, oh, if I do want to step away from alcohol for a bit, this still gives me sort of that citrus, that lemon. It actually has
Yeah,
a
no,
dry
it,
hop in
it
it.
is, and it's nice.
Like
It's got a great
it's a
flavor
pale ale
profile.
through and
It's
through.
it's uh it's it, for lack of a better term, it's crisp and clean. I mean, this is another, you could this would be fantastic
Yeah,
on a day when
yeah,
it's like 28, 30 degrees out. You and you don't want to get yourself
yeah.
into the
Yeah.
problem I find myself in most times, where it's that hot out and I'm still drinking imperial barrel aged stouts.
Yeah, as a stout man, summer's always sort of a tough. It's winter's great. Winter's great, but we'll have to see if we can hook you up with a bottle of our imperial. We put out an imperial stout that is just
Royal
being relabeled.
Royal
Unfortunately, it
Imperial
was a
Stout.
Russian imperial stout before. Oh, yeah, yeah. It said Russian on the bottle, and we were getting a lot of questions, and we were like, valid. Like, we get it.
Right.
Like, it's a style, but we're not gonna fight this. We totally get it. So we pulled every case that wasn't sold and have had it relabeled. Just out of, again, just sort of a solidarity of like, no, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
Like,
it is. I
it
mean,
sort of
considering
stinks,
considering the
but at the
atrocities
same
that are
time,
going on,
it's the
yeah.
right thing to
I
do.
mean,
Um,
and hopefully all that's over by the time this airs.
yeah,
But you never can tell. Wars can drag on for years. So,
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
no,
You never
yeah. I
know.
mean, if you can hook me
Yeah,
up with a little bit of that, I'd be most
yeah,
appreciative. And like I said, I also want to try and get a hold of that Ode Bruin, because that's one of my favorite styles. I love the I love barrel aged anything. Um,
yeah.
you know.
Oh, yeah. So, and I, Brett's this thing that not a lot of people really like. Even if you drink it, you don't really know always the process of it. And it was really fun. That was a passion project of being able to go in and be like, no, I'm going to research the shit out of this. The Sour Hour podcast, as we're on podcast sort of stream here, was great information, like incredible stuff from some amazing brewers down in the States that gave me so much clarity on like, oh, yeah, okay, don't do this. Like, this makes a lot of sense. This is why I've had bad sours. This is probably where these are at. And it gave me such a great foundation of what I was doing. Although some of the guests hate lacto fermentation, I was like, no, I'm not caving on that. I love that. But um, yeah, it was like this big project of like, I want to make this right, and it turned out exactly the way that I thought. For anybody who doesn't really know too much about Brett, it's
Yeah.
slow and it's a grind, and it's probably why you don't see a whole lot of commercial examples of it. Um, but I remember, and again, that podcast and a bunch of other books and research that I'd done, it's like, so you're at week 3 and it tastes like Band-Aid. Don't worry. This is part. And I was like, don't worry about like, and it was so incredible. Maybe one of those power suggestion things, but I pulled it off tank and I went, oh no, but wait, I read about this, but I still can't believe that this is going to be okay. It was fresh Band-Aid out of the pack. Like, I've never smelt that in a beer before. And it's just like, yeah, that'll be okay. Just give it some time. Let it do its thing. And it's like, oh, I'm gonna cost the company a bunch of money on this Band-Aid beer. That's not a good thing. I fought really hard to get this beer, and now it tastes like
Yep.
frickin' medical supplies. Like, oh, bad. And then it just goes away. Like, it's just, if you do everything right and leave it alone and temperature control, everything just kind of comes out right. It's
Yep.
a really nice sort of learning lesson of beer, of like, be patient. Just be patient. Everything will be okay if you
Yeah.
can have the
Yeah,
patience
I've
for it.
only
So,
ever uh, I've only ever made two
and read
sours.
and
One was a
read
kettle
and read
sour,
and read
which
and
was
read.
okay.
But
And then the other one I did a wild fermented sour.
yeah,
Um, with so I took a recipe I created for an alcoholic ginger
okay,
beer, and then I did a wild ferment on it, and it was it was very unusual. It wasn't bad,
nice,
but it was not what I expected. Um, and and I let people try it, and there was two
great,
camps. People loved it, people hated it. There was no middle road. and
yeah,
and I was like, I mean, yeah,
yeah,
it's okay. I'll drink it.
no in
It's
between.
not what I
Oh,
thought it
that's
was going
okay.
to taste like, because it's the first time I'd ever tried a wild ferment. I mean, I literally put the wort into my fermenter and left the top off with a window open so the breeze could blow in, and I let it do its thing, and it took, I don't know, I think it fermented for like 3.5
Yeah,
weeks. It took for it to finally finish doing its thing, and it was
yeah.
weird. I don't know that I'll ever try it again with that
Actually,
recipe, at
yeah,
least, but I'm glad I did it because it was an experience, and I learned a little bit about how the process works when you're trying to do wild ales. Because I mean, you think about it, there's a whole industry of wild ales out there, so I wanted to try it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The best mistake I ever made was with wild ales. I was traveling over in Europe, just before I got the job at Lake of Bays. I interviewed. They gave me the job and said, "When can you start?" Because we're kind of busy. And I was like, "Oh, I booked a trip to Europe." I was actually like, I legitimately was trying to get a work visa, and I came out of school and I was thinking, I'm gonna brewery hop. Like, I'm just gonna give them help throughout busy seasons, festivals, whatever. I'm just gonna get my feet wet and get a bunch of experience. And that was supposed to be like an 8 to 16 month adventure, depending on how much money I basically blew through. And they were like, "Yeah, when can you start?" And I was like, "Oh, I booked this trip, so I'll be back in a," and I just said a month, and they're like, "Oh, okay, well, okay, we'll see you in a month then." All right. And so I drove back home to Newmarket because I had to drive up for the interview. And I drove back home to Newmarket and I went online and I booked my plane ticket that day. And I left 3 days later and, and pissed off to Europe for 4 weeks. But, and then came back on the 25th, drove up the 26th and started work on the 27th with no apartment in Baysville, Ontario, where you think it's hard to rent now. Ooh, Baysville, Ontario in 2013. There was probably one place and I got it. That was it. Um but so when I was over there, I was in Belgium and I was doing I'm a very kind of just fly by the seat of my pants person. I'm fine with that. Opposites do attract. The wife is driven crazy as she is very much
I
a
haven't
here
even
is
thought
our
about what
schedule for the
socks I'm
next
wearing
three
tomorrow,
years. How do
honey.
you feel about it? Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to put any input into this. Is lunch a priority today? I'm not 100% sure. But I was in Belgium and I just randomly searched breweries, and the closest one to me was Cantillon. And if you've ever had a beer from them, it's like, oh, these are the guys. Like, there's other great wild fermentation over there, but Cantillon has a wonderful resume of fantastic stuff. And I went in there and I was like, because again, I just walked up to a building thinking, oh, it'll be like a new little microbrewery and I can have a pint there and kind of figure out my day. And I went in and I was like, everything here is like 100 years old. Like, this is a gravity fed
Yep.
building. This has open windows in it. What is a cool ship? They have a cool ship. Like, what are we doing here? And so I randomly stumbled upon, like, in my opinion, one of the greatest kind of old Belgian breweries that I could possibly have ever randomly stumbled upon. And yeah, they had windows and a cool ship in their attic basically, and the building looks like it's just like, yeah,
Right.
bird's nest in here and whatever. Like, we don't care. This is what we've been doing for 100 years, so we're fine. And then you chase their product, and it's like, there's nothing like this, and I love this, and so it's so cool. But yeah, just kind of thinking of that
Right.
that that open window and just letting it go. Like, what? Not what we're taught in school. Not what I teach any brewers that we hire anymore. Like, no open windows, none of this crap. It's
Better do it again to
sanitize.
make sure.
Sanitize and sanitize again. Do you remember sanitizing it? No. Better do it again. Like, caustic and Sanny
Yeah.
again. That's your life.
Yeah,
Um,
it's funny. People,
yeah, and then you
people,
just,
uh,
it's
people
fine.
who don't understand
Okay,
brewing
sure.
think that brewing is all about making the beer. They don't understand that no, 99% of it is actually cleaning all the equipment. Yeah.
Cleaning and babysitting. Is that
Yeah.
the tank cooling still on?
I've got more
Okay,
stainless to clean.
perfect. I'll be back there scrubbing again then. That, that yeah, I've got a lot of
Those
stainless
damn
to clean
water
in this
pools.
building. So and
That's why
those
they make
floors don't drain
squeegees, my friend.
themselves. So damn water pools. Yeah, no, it's that's
Awesome.
why, and we love squeegees. We love squeegees. Yeah. No, it's yeah. It's one of those things about that brewing. It always seems, you always get people wandering
Yep.
into pubs. They're like, "Wow, what a cool job!" I'm like, "Yeah, pubs aren't exactly like pubs are showpieces. Pubs, we brew in the pubs maybe one brew a week in Huntsville, one brew every 2 weeks in Bracebridge, and summertime in Baysville is at some points it feels like it's round the clock. It's usually eight to nine brews over a 5 day period with doubles and pardon me, triple packaging shifts and blah blah blah. So it's it's a grind. It really is a grind, and you have to kind of appreciate all of your little work that always seems so useless, and not it's part of the bigger picture. But why scrubbing ferrules and why cleaning out, valves and tees that have a little bit of gunk on them is
Yep.
not an okay practice. They need to get re-sanitized, re-caustic, and done all over again. And you kind of get the new recruits in, and you know it within
Right.
about a month and a half. Oh, you don't like cleaning. So this might not work. This might not be the job for you, but we'll
Yep.
let it go and see how long you want to figure
No, no,
if
yeah, I
cleaning
mean
is for you. But
that's key.
you
I can
have to
tell you,
clean. You have
I've
to.
had a few
So
bad batches of beer because obviously I didn't clean something quite well enough. Yep. Well,
yep,
Andrew, we have
yeah,
been
it takes
talking
nothing.
for
Takes
59
absolutely
minutes.
nothing.
That's pretty close to an hour. I think this is probably a good spot to say this is the end of the show. So if
Pretty close.
if you enjoyed listening to Andrew and I ramble on about different things in the beer and brewing world, please please click that little like symbol there at the bottom you'll see in this video. If you're feeling generous, subscribe to the channel and maybe share it with some friends. If you have an idea for a beer style, a beer or a brewery you'd like me to try and talk to, just leave the comments below. If you have questions for me or for Andrew, leave those in the comments below. I'll forward it on anything that needs to be forwarded on. Other than that, until next time, I'm Rob from the internet. Cheers.